Before we get started, I'd like to know if there was maybe one nugget, from Vegas that you're adding to your company or your systems or tools. Was there anything that stood out for you or no?
Yes, actually, and it was a common theme. My biggest takeaway was both keynote speakers had a very similar message, and that was your physical space and its impact on your mental space. Um, with Tony Robbins, he, had us up and jumping around and just active. And how that instantly changes your mental energy. And then that filtered right into Mel Robbins, of course, which was not any relation, but I don't know how, I've never heard of her before with the 5-second rule.
Right.
Of course, as she was speaking, I was Googling her and looked at her social media, and she's got such a big following, but that very simplistic 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 move. So if you missed it, if you haven't heard of her either or know what her book and platform is all about, a easy YouTube search will get you, if you get any of her videos, 20 to 45 minutes, you'll get the gist of what we got at Family Reunion. And it is absolutely the biggest takeaway for me. It's so easy, and it's like you're just that mental muscle training. And so
Right.
that was the easiest, most implementable, simplistic takeaway that had the most impact, I think, of any speaker I've seen.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing that because I think that it just shows that it doesn't have to be complicated. It's very simple and it's just. And
Yes.
like Nike, just do it. It's just the just part of that is the most important. And I agree. I didn't know who she was until about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. And I read her book and I thought that is so simple, right?
Yes.
Again, I think that especially today, we all need to implement that. Just go and do and don't
Yes.
overthink it, right? Success is simple, not easy. So thanks for allowing me a diversion right there. But I was just curious because over the next week or so, we're really going to start working and implementing. And I see one of my good buddies on the screen here, Kenneth Woods. And Kenneth gave me a great idea that Kenneth, we're going to start working and implementing that over the next week. So again, without further ado, the stage is yours. And I want you to share whatever is on your heart and make sure that tell the folks where you're from and where you're at so that if we have anybody maybe in the North Atlanta area or North Georgia area that they can reach out and get you if needed.
Okay. So I am in the north side of Atlanta in the suburbs. So basically in Atlanta, it's in the city proper, that's like in the perimeter, or all the suburbs are outside of it, which is a distinction. A lot of cities, you can cover all of it. With Atlanta, there's about 5 distinctive areas, and most agents don't cross over into all of them because our traffic is a real issue here. So think anything north of Atlanta, which is where the most popular suburbs are anyway. That's exactly where I sit. My office is in Alpharetta, which is the North Fulton, Alpharetta, Milton. That's a very common place for relocating. And then I live one county further north of that. So that's kind of my bubble, north side of Atlanta.
Okay,
Mhm.
great. Now, real quick. So I saw in the bullets that you sent. So in 23, you were a solo agent. In 21 and 22, did you have a small team? And do you currently? So what does your organization look like?
Yes, so currently I have me, a full-time director of operations, a full-time marketing listing specialist, sort of been with me from the beginning, about 5 years, executive assistant type of role. She wears a few hats. I have a third-party TC, and as of the first week of this year, I did bring on a full-time producing agent. She does listings and buyers. So before that, though, so I've been solo this whole past year for 23, but in 21 and 22, I had me and one agent. Basically, she handled all of my buyers. So that worked well for a while until it didn't work well. So we had a good run and then it didn't work well. So during those 2 years, I was still the primary producing agent. Overall, the buyers that she worked with were my listings. That's primarily where my buyers come from.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good. So what's on your heart today? What would you like to share with us?
So I am 6 years in the door with KW, and I came from a couple of years of small brokerage where within the 13th or 14th month as a brand new agent, I was the #1 solo agent. So that was the first problem, because you should not be the #1 agent in an office if you've barely been there for a year. So I realized I have outgrown my shell already. Went on, looked for bigger and better things that landed me in my current office. And from that day forward, I will say within 6 weeks, I got a MAPS coach. I went to family reunion. I joined the luxury group because I did have qualifying production for that. I completely immersed in the culture of this company. And I very quickly went from a world of impossible to complete possibility. Like I could see the path. We have excellent team leaders here. We implemented a business plan. I had never heard of MREA agent. I didn't know that was a thing outside of ultra luxury property. And my biggest takeaway as a new KW agent was, wait a minute, there's a book that tells you exactly how to do this, and people do not read it. That was like mind blowing to me. So I read it, and it took about 2 years and maybe 3 or 4 months from the read to go from a small, not very well-known brokerage that's only in Atlanta to my first year as MREA in about right over 2 years. So, and that's where I've been the last 3. 2 years with a small team, 1 year solo. I actually had my highest producing year ever last year as a solo in one of the toughest markets there was. In my 9 years anyway.
What an accomplishment. And what helped you get there?
So one of the primary anchors, I think, that's always been such a natural transition. I spent 20 years in a corporate job before. I worked in insurance claims, large loss, litigation files. You were sued or your house burned or flooded or something very significant if I showed up. So I had a very high caseload at all times, which caused me to be incredibly organized and very, very focused on time blocking, or I couldn't get it done. So I went from 150 to 175 files to a real estate agent load, which is not 150 at one given time for a single agent. So I think the secret sauce was I always treated this profession as a full-time career from day one. I showed up, I had work hours, I had a schedule even before I had a client. And I just haven't wavered. I'm in the 9th year now, and I treat it exactly as that.
You don't know how meaningful and important that is, because I can tell you, I see a couple of newer agents on here. And if my son wasn't in class, he should be here, because I think it's important for folks to know that, no, this is a career and a career choice, and it needs to be treated as such. We have so many agents in this office that I think they can just dart in and dart out, we don't see the involvement and the commitment to excellence and success. And like most, 90% of newer agents in this business fail now. And those numbers blow me away. And I think that the secret sauce is you have to show up before you can show out, and be engaged and be learning based. And I think spend time around eagles like yourself and so many others on this call. To me, that's the secret sauce. And I just don't understand why more don't truly get engaged and involved. And so you've done that from the start. And I think your corporate career helped, but it doesn't matter if you've come away from, teaching or another sales career. I think you just have to show up and know that,
I
anyway.
mean, there is a direct correlation. Command of your calendar is a direct output to your bank account. If you can't control that, you're fighting an uphill battle with concrete shoes with a
Yeah.
boulder on your back. Once you train yourself, because obviously my year 1 KW habits is not my year 6 KW habits. Every year I had to grow and perfect the discipline of schedule to get to where I want it to go. It is that whole, what you said, we all hear it, success is simple, but it's not easy. And I see two kinds of agents. We have a huge market center. There's 700 plus agents in my one market center. And there is agents here 5 days a week, no matter what time I come, they are here. They are not working with clients. They are spending all day long with busy work. They're living in that 80% of that 80-20 rule. And if you're one of those agents, you're kind of lost, like you've got the motivation to show up, but you're not spending your time on that 20%. You should not be in the office that much. If you are a producing agent, you've got to take the training wheels off. You've got to get in front of clients. You have to have some handshakes going on to start some business transactions. And people spend years sitting in the workroom and not engaging. They're just waiting to get the perfect listing presentation. They're waiting to learn this perfect. You can't wait. You have to jump out. You find a mentor. You find somebody you admire. You lock arms with them and shadow them. And we have a lot of givers in our company. That was the biggest switch for me. And that's what I did. In my original brokerage, we didn't have a productivity coaching program. There wasn't formal MAPS coaching. I was a 1-year agent and I thought, how can I compress time? How can I go from 20 years, I was at peak top of career, to all of a sudden, I am at the very bottom and haven't sold a house in my whole life. How do I get expert level as fast as possible? Well, you find an expert and you pay for their time. From day one, I offered, like, look, I don't want to come in here and feel guilty asking you questions because I want to learn how to do this at a high level. I didn't practice on my first clients. Even my first clients, I had a mentor that was helping me behind the scenes so that I showed up looking like a professional. And I paid 10% of my first 3 transactions because I wanted him in the trenches with me so I didn't have missteps, so that I got to the next level faster. And that has kind of carried me through. And of course, now I'm on the other side of that. That mentality, that work ethic, I went from rookie of the year in my other company, which it's not tiny. There's 17 offices in Atlanta, but they're only in Atlanta. I went rookie of the year, switched to KW. Within 2 years of that, I was in the top 1% of Atlanta agents. Within 2 years of that, I was in the top 1% of the Southeast region. And then for the last 4 years, I have been in the top 1% nationally, as you know, because we are in the same similar groups on production. And that is all the basic habits that I started in year 1. I just got better at doing them. And every year there's still a breakdown. You grow again, and what you were doing to succeed at that level is not enough again. So I've just learned to embrace every year requires a different Susan to show up. New skills, new habits, new disciplines, new delegations, new people. Because you have to accept that kind of growth and that pattern. Because I think people think I got it all figured out, now I'm set. And I think I felt that 1 or 2 times. And then you realize you grow again and you're not set. You got to get better systems. You got to have better habits to keep growing. So just embrace that that is the rhythm, and find people who are doing it better than you and mastermind with them. And then all of a sudden your weaknesses are not so weak, and you help pour your strengths into other people. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Powerful. That's so powerful. I appreciate you sharing, because I realized that after, I mean, I've done this basically my entire adult life, that in order for me to continue to grow, and I want that for myself, that Ben Baker's got to become a different version of himself, and not forget who I am, but I think add a layer or two. And I'm fortunate that I've got a number of Eagles, and you don't know this, but I consider you one. And so I'm going to make sure that we definitely connect after this call, and hopefully, if it's not mega camp or spring masterminds or Gary's, individual mastermind, that we connect, because I think that I love having Eagles in my world. And I think the folks who are consistently showing up on this call feel the exact same way, because we all learn and lift each other up. So thank you for the time that you've spent today. I appreciate that. And I'll just take a couple more minutes of your time. So touch on mayor, because you had that in your bullet points, and it means something to me, but I want to know what it means to you, and share on that for a second.
So I did, like many of you do, when you're introduced to this world, you quickly see that there are multiple paths of success in it. You have your door knockers, your cold callers, your social media gurus, you have your people who buy leads, and you will find some agent succeeding at a high level on every one of those roads. And if that feels like a natural vibe for you, that's who you should attach to. For me, that was not my vibe. I did not want to engage in any of those things. I wanted a repeat referral business. I wanted people calling me. And that happened my first farming, how the mayor was born. I was 4 months in the door. I do have my minor in college was a marketing minor. So I had some base knowledge. Granted, I never worked in the field, and it was 2 decades later, but there was a foundation there that I was dusting off. And I knew if you were going to market, you do it every month without fail, not when you feel like it. I have this, I'll show y'all sitting at every desk, home and work. I'll read it to you. It says, you can never expect to succeed if you only put in work on the days you feel like it. That has been an overall mantra for me. So I knew it's an all in or an all out. If you farm once here, 2 or 3 months, you don't get the prize, people pull out. It didn't work. No, farming, I have a whole class on farm your way to MREA and how to become the mayor of your farm area. So within 18, I got my first hit at month 4 from an unknown agent. Everybody knew I was brand new. It was in my neighborhood, and there were 2 dominants. I got my first listing there. With the marketing campaign that I did, I went from unknown, brand new. Within the first year, I had 18% market share. By the end of year 3, I had 36%. By the end of year 4, I had 42%. And the last 3 years, I have maintained 60 to 65% market share. About year 2 or 3 is when I started understanding the benefit of those handshakes over hashtag type mentality, get belly to belly in front of people. I got very involved in events, and I get just from the main farm, I'm not even including the spin-off business from it and the referrals outside of it. But for what I put into it, events and everything, is about a 42 to 44x is what I get out of it. So it's massively successful, and it is duplicatable. I have done it in a couple of other neighborhoods and it's very similar, about 4 months in before you get a hit and then it takes over. But being top of mind for everything. When I was brand new, no clients, there was nothing I could post about. There was no just listed, just solds I could share with the neighborhood. It was just me. And what I did is I anchored down on being the expert of vendors. If somebody posted in our Facebook group, they need somebody to replace a window, they need a roofer, they need a plumber, they need anything, somebody to remodel their kitchen. I had an arsenal of vendors and I became synonymous, all things home related, call me. And then it quickly transferred into listings and referrals. So from that original farm, which is 498 homes, about 92 to 94% of business is repeat refer. And I'm going to say an overwhelming 80% is non-compete, where they just call me. So it's a very powerful way to do business built on relationships. Even if I'm not calling out, they still call in because I don't miss a month. I have not missed a month since month 4, and I'm in year 9 now. That's the key. Consistency wins over and over. And then when you start adding talent and experience, layer that on top of unrelenting practice of the basics. Like any other sport, you master that and you cruise right past your competition. Even those that had a decade, 2 decades of experience over me, I was winning at a high level fast because I was consistent.
Unrelenting. I love that. I've added that to my notes. So I farm myself, and I think, Christina, we clearly can learn a little something here, because I don't think I've ever had more than about 20% dominance in a neighborhood. And so there's my challenge right there. So thank you for sharing that.
And it's sustainable.
Yes.
I'm in year 4 of 60 to 65% market share.
Nice. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there something else that you'd love to share with us before we let you go?
I think the other thing that is a stand apart is I do have a daily habit that every single morning, there's nothing that comes before being a student of the market. And in my prime areas, I'm look what went on the market, what went under contract, what went out of contract, what closed. Like I can have elevator conversation about anything, anywhere, at any time on my prime markets because I study them every morning. And when I say study them, it's 10, 15 minutes. I've been doing it so long, I hit highlights and it's done. Like I know if I run into somebody that day, I can talk about things in the market. So being a perpetual student of the market is huge. Not just when you're running comps, not just when you're going on a buyer consultation, not just when you're going on a listing. Always be a student of the market, especially if you're attracted to that repeat refer farming model. You absolutely should know that farm inside and out every morning when you're walking out the door, and it takes minutes to perfect that. Minutes. Even as brand new agent, I was able to do that.